What is sex addiction? So today in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what sex addiction is, or if you prefer, you can call it porn addictions. Most people that have sex addiction, myself included, for many, many years, I had a vague understanding of what it was. I knew what was going on with me, but I didn't know the actual components of what was going on. And when we understand this, when we understand exactly what sex addiction is, then we have a chance of recovering from it by getting the correct type of recovery and treatment. So I'm going to show you exactly what sex addiction is today so that you can understand it better. So the first part of sex addiction is really a physical compulsion. What I really mean by that is when a person starts, for example, for myself, when I would start an acting out behavior, when I started, I couldn't stop. It would suck me into the acting out behavior, whether it was looking at pornography or some other, there's many different types of acting out. It would just suck me in and I would go into this sort of trance-like state. And once I was in it, it was really hard to come out of it. So that's why people will experience, and I experience this as well, they'd sit down, they start looking at some pornography, they're clicking away, click, 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 and hours go by. So sometimes people experience where they literally stay up all night looking at pornography, and then when they're done, they're just like, what just happened? How did all those hours just go by? And the truth is there's some kind of neural pathway, or some kind of physical compulsion that really sucks us in to that behavior, and we really go into this trance-like state that's nearly impossible to stop once it starts. Now, this is an interesting thing because I'll refer to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, where they basically talk about how alcoholics have a physical allergy to alcohol, which is really kind of weird. Like, allergy just means an abnormal reaction to alcohol. So what happens with an alcoholic is they have one drink, and then after they have that drink, they have another and another and another. And even if they had the intention of only having one or two drinks, they get sucked into this physical compulsion, and it takes control of their life in that moment. And they drink and drink and go and go and go and go and go, and then really bad things happen. So the same thing happens with sex addicts. Whatever the acting out behavior is, womanizing, chatting online, pornography, soliciting prostitutes for sex, there's lots of different acting out behaviors. The person goes through a ritual or a trance-like state when they're actually acting out, and hours and sometimes days and even weeks will go by where they're in this trance of the acting out behavior, this ritual of the acting out behavior, and they have very little say in their life. They have very little say in whether they can actually stop that behavior. And everybody around them goes, what's wrong with him? Why can't he just stop? And the truth is they're just really sucked into this physical compulsion where when they start, they can't stop. Hey, if you're digging this video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, give us some engagement. If you have questions, comment below. We'll get back to you on it. But if you like and subscribe, you'll see more of these videos. It'll pop right up when you open up your YouTube, and it also helps us reach more people that way. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, do all that great stuff. So now that we know the ritual, the trance, the physical compulsion, that's part one of what sex addiction is. Let's talk about part two, which is a mental obsession. It's not just, oh, I have, fantasy and lust in my head. It's actually the desire. The mental obsession is actually the gut-wrenching desire that a sex addict has to act out sexually. So I might feel sexual, I might have had fantasy going on or that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a completely normal part of being a human being. But what I had was I wouldn't be acting out, and then all of a sudden this thought would cross my mind, it'd be nice to look at some pornography right now, it'd be nice to do XYZ, right? And then what happened is that little thought would grow into a raging obsession that I couldn't get out of. And at that point, I'm not acting out sexually, I'm not doing anything sexual in any way, but I have this obsession with acting out, and what it would do is it would grow, it'd eat away at me and eat away at me, and eventually the obsession would grow so big that I would say screw it, and I would just go and I'd start acting out. And guess what happens? When I start acting out, I get sucked into the physical compulsion. and I get sucked into the trance and the ritual of acting out, and I go through another spree of acting out. But it started with a mental obsession with it. So really what happens, the main problem with sex addiction centers in the mind rather than the physical compulsion. So when I would act out and I'd be done acting out, I promised myself and everybody else that I was going to stop. And if you hooked me up to a lie detector, I would pass the lie detector. Like I had all the intentions of never doing it again, right? But the main problem would happen, which is the second part, which is that I had this mental obsession. I had this mental process that brought me back to it over and over and over again. So the real problem is, how do we get rid of the mental obsession with acting out? If we're able to do that, then we're able to stop long term. And I'll talk to you in the third part about how we get rid of the mental obsession. But just know, in the first part, when I start, I can't stop. That's the physical compulsion. I get sucked into the ritual and the trance of it. The second part is when I'm stopped, I can't stay stopped because I have a mental process that brings me back to it over and over and over again. Even when I have the desire not to do it, even when I've promised everybody I'm not going to do it again, I lack complete mental control over this, and that obsession grows and grows and grows, and then I go back to it, and I do this over and over and over again. People with sex addiction live in this cycle. It's basically act out, bad things happen, promise yourself and everybody else you're never going to do it again, maybe get like 2 hours or 2 days, or usually it's about 3 days, and the mental obsession hits. It grows and grows and grows. They fight, they white knuckle it until they just give in to the obsession, and then boom, they act out again, and they go through another ritual and cycle of acting out. Again, emerging remorseful, despair, feeling terrible about what they did, promising themselves they're never going to do it again. Then the mental obsession hits at some point in the future, and they do it again and again and again. This goes on for years and years and years. When I describe this to my clients, some of them that are older are like, this has literally been happening to me for 40 years. And it's just extremely frustrating to the person. Like, why can't I stop this? So when I explain this, that this is what's going on, that you've completely lost control, people are like, oh, thank God I finally know that. It's not just like I'm a bad person and I do these things. It's I have an illness where when I start, I can't stop. And then when I'm stopped, I can't stay that way because I have this mental obsession. And there's a lot of relief that comes along from like knowing that this is a real illness. This is exactly why when Alcoholics Anonymous came along back in the 1930s, they basically were like, we're powerless over alcohol. That's exactly right, because that was what was happening. They were powerless over when they started, they couldn't stop. They were powerless over staying stopped. They'd go into the hospitals and get detox, and they'd come out and they'd drink the very next day. Same thing happens with a sex addict or a porn addict. And this is not like not a reason to like go to the people that we hurt in our lives and say, hey, the reason I'm doing this is because I have this illness and I don't have control over this. That's not a really good explanation of what's going on. So it's important for us, once we do realize this, to get the appropriate treatment for that. And that's why, I have a program, a recovery coaching program, where we help people break this cycle and get long-term sexual sobriety. That's why it's important to really do the recovery and the treatment, and to understand not only what the problem is, but what the solution is as well. So the third part is something I call restless, irritable, and discontent. This I took out of the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a part in there that talks about this addiction cycle that I have been talking in this video about. They basically say men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. So in other words, they like it how it makes them feel. It's relief. So what used to happen for me for many years, I had this sort of like underlying anxiety and depression. I just needed relief from my internal reaction to life. I don't know. I had it when I was a kid. I had it when I was in high school. I had it when I went to college. I had it as an adult. I just had this restless, irritable, and that's why I call it RID, restless, irritable, and discontent in my life, that I needed to feel good. So anything that made me feel good, food, drugs, alcohol, sexual acting out, those are all things that made me feel good. I would gravitate towards that. And for me, what happened as a sex addict is it became an addiction. And so I got sucked into the first and second part, the compulsion and the mental obsession. But the truth is, I was doing it to relieve inner pain, negative affect, my internal reaction to life, my restless, irritable, and discontent. That's the reason I do it. So the acting out behaviors, even though I'm powerless over those things and I get sucked into that, the truth is that's just a symptom of a deeper issue, an internal reaction to life, fears, false beliefs, anxiety, depression, any of those kinds of things were things that I experienced, and I needed the acting out behavior to actually feel good. And what would happen is I'd feel good doing acting out for a little while, and then when it was done, I felt even worse afterwards. So we're either like going through a spree of acting out or recovering from that. And on the tail side of acting out, that depression and anxiety, that restless, irritable, and discontent would get like 10 times worse, just because I added the extra guilt about the acting out on there. So there is an underlying issue that's really at the root of the addiction, and it keeps that cycle going, because anytime an addict, myself included, feels uncomfortable, they need to do something about that. Then boom, the mental obsession hits, and then the mental obsession grows and grows and grows, and then boom, I start acting out again, and I go through the well-known stages of another spree. The key here is to treat the restless, irritable, and discontent, the underlying issue. When we treat that, two really amazing things happen. One, the mental obsession goes away and we break the cycle of the addiction. So it just goes away. So I'm 16 years sexually sober. I treated my underlying issue, my restless, irritable, and discontent, my internal reaction to life. I no longer have the obsession, so I've broken the cycle. I don't wake up every day wondering if I'm going to act out, right? Or when I'm going to act out. I just don't have that obsession anymore. I have normal sexual energy in my life as a human man, but I just don't get that gut-wrenching obsession to act out anymore. And that's because I took a really close look at my internal reaction to, like, what were the building blocks of restless, irritable, and discontent, the underlying issues. That's exactly what we do. We help people establish sexual sobriety, and what that is, we give them the support early on to get through the urges, but we very quickly start to treat through written processes, through group work, through one-to-one work. We very quickly start to treat the underlying issue, and the person heals internally, and then all of a sudden they don't have the obsession to act out anymore, and they're able to stop the cycle long term. That's essentially how we do this. Hey, if you're loving this video and you're just like, this makes complete sense to me, and you're interested in potentially doing the work needed to recover from this, we do have a 12-week program. It's actually longer than 12 weeks for a lot of my clients that continue beyond. We have a comprehensive recovery coaching program called the Core Foundations Recovery. All you got to do, if you want to check that out, click on the link in the description below. You'll see a video where I talk about some of this stuff. You'll see some my whole website, and you have an opportunity in many places on that website to book a call with us. And what we do on that call is we check in with you on what your current situation is, see if you're a good fit for what we do. We talk about what we do. We talk about how it might be able to help you. And if, and only if, you're a good fit for that, we'll offer to work with you, and you come into the program, and we can start working through this addiction with you. If not, you learn a lot about recovery and addiction, and it'll be a really good call. So if you're interested in knowing what we do and want to get on with one of my recovery advisors, go to that website, book a call, and we'll see you in there and see if we can help you out. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll talk soon.